which are indeed very, very important. What I'd like to do is ideas related. So today, here we are, found the beginning. You may or may not be. There is no Masechet Chanukah in the Gemara. There is no Mishnah with the laws of Chanukah, as opposed to, let's say, Purim, that does have a Masechet Megillah. But if I want to learn the laws of Chanukah, I turn to the beginning of the second, well, it's in the second perek of Masechet Shabbat. There's about 2 daf that begin with the words My Chanukah, and those 2 dapim talk about Chanukah. In that sugya of My Chanukah, there is a very well-known debate between the school of Hillel and the school of Shammai about how to light Chanukah lights.
I think it's the most famous Hillel and Shammai discussion.
Oh, excellent! And what's the argument?
Do you light it from 1 to 8 or from 8 to 1?
Excellent. According to Beit Hillel, the opinion that we follow, on the first night of Chanukah we light with 1 candle, 1 night, and then we go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And according to Beit Shammai, we start on the first night with 8, and then we go down to 1. Now, what I want to do today is I want to understand Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. But I want to understand Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai by introducing that they are the only 2 rabbis that argue not just as individuals, but as schools. Meaning there is a school of Hillel. Yeah, there's a school, meaning like the person that's suitable to go to the worldview of Hillel, go to Beit Shammai. Is like the worldview. So what I want to do is I want to use this machloket really to understand a fundamental argument between 2 ways of looking at halakha. The way of Hillel and the way of Shammai. As you know, there are hundreds of places in the Talmud where Hillel and Shammai, or Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, where they have arguments. So really, one might say it's not that they happen to argue about everything, but rather that Hillel has a worldview that allows that when he looks at the world in his way, then halakha comes out like this, and Shammai's got a way of looking at the world. Shammai looks at the halakha, looks at the world, so then halakha goes like that. You follow? We can understand what's the worldview of Beit Hillel and what's the worldview of Beit Shammai. That's what I want to talk about today. We're going to do that. I'll tell you, we're going to do 3 things today. We're going to start by looking at Hillel and Shammai, the people, and then Beit Shammai. And then once we feel like we've got to know the schools a little bit, we are then going to look at, well, I'm going to share 2, perhaps you'll come up with different ones, 2 approaches to understand the meta machloket. What is the big argument between these 2 worldviews that leads Beit Hillel to always, to rule in the way that he does, and Beit Shammai to rule in the way that he does. So does anyone here know anything about Hillel and Shammai?
So I heard that Hillel.
Yeah.
So I don't know much about Shammai, but I heard that Hillel, he's more like you, that he controls his anger a lot and is very hard to get anger. And there's a story where someone made a bet with someone else. He can anger Hillel, but lost. And he said to him, "May there never be a person like you because I lost money."
Yes. Yeah, so it's quite well. It's a Gemara. There are 3 stories. Gemara in Shabbat, 3 stories about Hillel and Shammai. We're going to look at one of the 3 stories, probably the most well known of those 3 stories. But they lived. There was, just in terms of the way halakha happened, although this is not a lesson in the history of halakha, but just for you to know, the Second Temple period was probably, for me at least, one of the most fascinating times in Jewish history. Because when we enter the Second Temple period, the leaders of the Jewish people are Ezra, Nehemiah, Zechariah, Malachi. They are all. They are all Nevi'im. They are all prophets. Not all of them are prophets, but within them, Zechariah Hanavi, Hillel, Ezra, and Nehemiah were leaders. They weren't prophets, but they were.
Some argue Ezra was actually Malachi.
Okay, you're correct. Zechariah, Malachi, they lived at that time. They were certainly Nevi'im. Haggai, Zechariah, Haggai, Malachi. Those three prophets all lived at the beginning of the Second Temple period. We start there, and then at the end of the Second Temple period, we're already on Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He was taken out. Sort of tried to save. Mm-hmm. He was there. He was the leader of the destruction of the Second Temple.
His nephew was leader of the Zealots.
Right.
What are they called? Benuim?
Oh, my gosh! You are so well read.
What's their name again?
I wish I could tell you now.
Yeah.
I couldn't see it, but I can't. Yeah.
And then English translates it as zealots. That's true. But they were more like, no, we're not gonna let them control us. We're gonna fight back and we're gonna win and everything. And he Rabbi Zechariah
Rabbi Yochanan ben
Zakkai. He said, "You're not gonna win. There's no way. There's no reason to fight. We should surrender and let them."
Right.
Controlling.
The last 4 years before the Second Temple was destroyed, there was the Jewish people was a little bit torn about, are we going to cooperate with the Romans or are we not going to cooperate with them? But that's not the topic. I want to just that transition, Haggai, Malachi, Zechariah to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, from the leadership of Nevi'im to the leadership of the Tanaim. And in the middle, there is Hillel and Shammai were the last of the Zugot. There were 5 pairs of. What happened was really, I suppose, Halakha was clear, and then there was the decision that we have to write things down. Machon, the Jewish people were not able to pass accurately the Torah from generation to generation. The decision to write things down, and really over probably about a 400-year period, various Tanaim were writing down, and then after the first temple, after the Second Temple was destroyed. In fact, the process is Hillel and Shammai. So they lived at the end of the Second Temple period, the last of the 5 pairs of rabbis. After Hillel and Shammai, you then had Beit Hillel. Story. It's not a halachic story, but it's just a way to get to know these two people, Hillel and Shammai Azaken. Amru alav al Shammai Azaken. Source number 1, Gemara in Beitza. They used to say about Shammai, Kol yamav haya ochel lichvod Shabbat. He would always eat Shabbat. I'm going to save this for Shabbat. Matzah acheret na'ei mimenu. But then if he was an upgrade, then he would eat the lower quality, and always, whenever he had food, he would always take what he had and save the best for Shabbat. And then if something better came along, he would then have what was previously the best, but is now the second best. It was like a mamash. I think if you eat Shammai Azaken on a Tuesday, he would say, Good Shabbos, good Shabbos.
I know somebody like that.
No, I'm exaggerating. I don't think he would say that. But he was mamash. He was just thinking about Shabbat all week long. His whole life. I mean, as are all of we. But everything was about Shabbat. You follow that? Aval Hillel Azaken mida acheret haytalo. Hillel was different.
He's called Hillel Azaken.
Correct. Hillel Azaken, Shammai Azaken. We're talking about the people who set up the schools. Shekol Ma'asav l'Shem Shemaim. Everything he did was l'Shem Shemaim. Shneimar Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. Every day is a day to express gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So let's have a delicious piece of meat today on a Tuesday. Thank you Hashem for this delicious meat on a Tuesday. I'm going to enjoy this gift from Hashem today. You follow? Every day is an opportunity to express gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. Shammai Azaken. I'm going to save the best. until Shabbat. Okay. V'chein shaninu, Beit Shammai omrim, echad b'Shabbat l'Shabbat. What have I missed out here? He would count every day as in its connection to Shabbat. However, Beit Hillel will say, Baruch Hashem Yom Yom, I'm grateful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu every single day. So on a Wednesday morning, Hillel would wake up. It's Wednesday morning. Thank you so much, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for the air, for the trees, for everything I'm experiencing this minute. Thank you, Hashem. And Shammai would wake up on a Wednesday morning saying, 3 days till Shabbos. Unbelievable. So full of excitement. Just 3 days to go. You follow? So Hillel is here and Shammai is sort of dreaming for Shabbos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like in Shem and Shmuel though, it says that like Esav...
In where?
In Shem and Shmuel.
Yeah.
It says that the midah of Esav was that he didn't really understand the difference between Iker and Tafel. Like he said that like, why don't we give maser on wheat stalks and salt?
Yeah.
Right, and that's like he didn't understand the idea that like sure we have 6 days of creation and that's so like it's like good like the days are like for Shabbat, no?
Yeah, the sun. I think Hillel was shomer. I mean, obviously he was very excited about Shabbos, but I think Shammai was just consumed, it seems, by Shabbos. Everything, meaning Wednesday. It's not Wednesday. Wednesday is 3 days till Shabbat. You follow? And Friday is Erev Shabbat. But Hillel was, today's Wednesday. Let me say, be grateful to you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for my Wednesday. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
I don't think it was there's to do with Iker and Tafel. It's more to do with let's go. Well, I think we'll continue when we come to one of the meta approaches. I think everything will make sense, and this machloket among them. Okay, that's the people Hillel Shammai. You follow? Okay, now I would like in source number 2 to look at a machloket lahalacha. This is not a machloket. It's not just a story, but this has halachic ramifications. Oh no, it is a story. Still no, we're going to get to halachic ramifications in a minute. Sorry. This is one of the 3 stories. We're going to look at one of the 3 stories in which people tried to, pitted an encounter with Hillel against with Shammai. But because we're not here till tomorrow, we're going to look at perhaps the same story. But they're okay. Shuv Maser, another. There were 3 stories. This is one of them. Nochri Echad, a non-Jew. Sheba lifnei Shammai, he came before Shammai. Amar lo, and he said, Gai Reini, convert me. Al menat shetilamdeni kol haTorah kula, kishani omed al regel achat. Teach me the whole Torah whilst I'm standing on one foot, which is probably tricky unless he's really very.
I also heard another story, from Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, that a guy came up to Beit Shammai and said, "I want to convert, but I only want to know the Torah Shebektav."
Yes, correct.
And Beit Shammai
Aleph
said,
Beis
"No."
Gimel.
And he went to Beit Hillel, and he said the same thing. Beit Hillel said, "Here's 3 letters. Come back tomorrow and tell me them."
Yeah.
He came back tomorrow, said the same thing Beit Hillel said, and he said that is incorrect.
Yeah. Do you know? I mean, that's another story. He went to Hillel, and Hillel said, "This is an Aleph, this is a Bet, this is a Gimel." He went back the following day, and he said, "Well, actually," so he said, "We can't keep changing." He says, "Oh, that's why we need Torah Shebal Peh." I mean, it's not enough just to have the written. You need an oral tradition to accompany. It's like you need the teacher's notes to read the text. You follow? Otherwise, you're going to get lost. Excellent. Very good. But we're going to continue just on this one. I think this story in particular highlights, as we will see later, the difference between the approaches. If we were to invest our time in looking at every argument between Hillel and Shammai, I think we'd be here till tomorrow morning. So we're going to focus the second one over here. So he said, "Allow me on one leg," and Shammai wasn't so sweet. I mean, Dechafor ba'amat habinyan shebiyado. He was unfortunately happened to be holding a beam at the time, which is a bit unfortunate for the poor guy that asked the question, because Shammai chased him out of the house with the beam, saying, and that was really Shammai saying, "I'm not going to deal with that." However, when he went in front of Hillel and said, "Gaireini amar lo da'alcha sani lechaverech al lo ta'avid," that which you would rather people don't do to you, don't do to them. Zuhi kol Torah kula. That is all Torah. Idach. And everything else, pirushahi. Everything else is an explanation of that. Zil gemar. You go and finish it off. You follow? That is the position of Hillel Hazaken. Hillel, in this particular story, certainly comes up as the patient, the calm, and Shammai doesn't seem to have as much patience for them. I will tell you two interesting things. You know the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, Perek Aleph, Mishnah Yud Bet, that we should be like the students of Aaron HaKohen, pursue peace and love everybody and bring them to the Torah. Nachon? You know that Mishnah? Hayumi Talmidav Shel Aaron, Ohev Shalom, Rodev Shalom, Ohev Dabriot, Umekorvan LaTorah. The Mishnah that preaches patience. Who taught that Mishnah? Hillel HaZaken. So we see a consistency between the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot about being like the students of Aaron HaKohen with patience and treating everyone with respect. That would seem to be consistent, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, with what we see him do in the Gemara in Shabbat. Shammai, on the other hand, would say, and this is the three Mishnayot later in the same perek, Aseh Toratcha Keva. Make your Torah fixed, meaning there's no compromises here. We're not going to faff around trying to teach someone to do the whole of Torah on one leg, and he got rid of him. You follow? So their approach to Torah in Pirkei Avot seems to reflect the answers that they gave in the Gemara. You follow what I'm saying? Okay, I might add just to that. However, the second part of the Mishnah of Aseh Torah Chakeva, it says, "Havei mekabel kol adam b'sever panim yafot." You have to welcome everybody with a warm face, which is tricky. That's Shammai HaZaken.
Which is interesting because...
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't finish so well.
Here he's stressing about being friendly.
Nachon. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's yes. Okay. Joy, happiness. We're getting to know Hillel, getting to know Shammai.
I don't think Shammai was necessarily impatient. I think he just knew when, somebody was just pulling his leg. Like if somebody came to seriously learn Torah, he was, so he felt like it was just being mocked.
It's a late son, obviously.
Ken, yeah. I mean, I haven't got time for late on him. I'm a serious. Yeah, I think. Yeah, when we learn, I know it's a tendency. You have to be careful about that, and your point is mechaded, sort of sharpens that idea very, very much. Yeah, we can't build a character. It's sort of, I might have a Shammai in my mind, and then I'm just going to use ammunition to build it up. But you're quite right that there's no reason to assume that he did not speak with dignity to this chap. It's just a guy that he's just so far away from reality if he thinks that that's possible. That with all due respect, sweet brother, but it's
Especially after learning this Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, we see another side of Shammai. Everyone, such a twist for everybody who learns it. Like Shammai saying this, you would think it would be Hillel would say.
They're two very important schools. It's not like one's like a grumpy guy and one's a happy. Sort of. With children, they know which parent to ask what. So it's not that. It's not personality. It's ideology. I believe this and he believes that. And as a result, it just happens to be when you plug in this ideology, that's the halachic result. You follow? But it's not about being more patient or not. Your point psychologically, but analyze it halachically and see what's the meta machloket, and not sort of And I remember I was in yeshiva, the Rav, and this is a good example of what we're going to do today. Whenever there's a machloket that we study in the Gemara, there always has to be a nekudat ha-machloket. There has to be a point of contention. And it can't be something trivial. Because if it was something trivial, the Gemara wouldn't mention it. So it can't be about a fact. Is it true or is it not true? Because if it's about a fact, that's not an argument. One person knows, the other one doesn't know. The Gemara wouldn't record an argument that is about facts. This one, did see the news, the other one didn't read the news, so he thought like this. That's not an argument. An argument has to be two trying to identify that nekudat ha-machloket is one of the greatest halachic issue, as opposed to personality traits, to try to explain what they're arguing about. And I think we'll find it even there. Okay. Joy, happiness. Okay, we're now going to turn to I wouldn't say the machloket, or a machloket between them that really triggered our discussion. It's in source number 3 that I mentioned earlier, the Gemara in the second parak of Masechet Shabbat. In source number 3, it's a Braita. So we're told, Tanu Rabbanan, we learn in a Braita, Mitzvat Chanukah, Ner Ish Uveito. The mitzvah of Chanukah is one light for a household. For Mahadrin, but those people that are being a little bit more particular, Chevra, Beit Shammai Omrim, Yom Rishon Madlik Shmona, Yom Rishon Madlik Achat, Mikan Va'elech Mosif Olech. You start with 1 and you move up to 8. Okay. So it can't be, and this is what we have, it can't be to his position, and a worldview that leads Shammai to his position. Otherwise, Gemara wouldn't record these two positions. So I'd like to examine together the worldview, perhaps just to make things slightly more interesting. Let me share more arguments with you.
Sorry, I have
Yeah.
a question on the text. So,
Yeah.
you say Mehadrin the Mehadrin. That.
That's the
What,
best.
no, I understand what it means, but I don't understand in this context. Because if we're not going.
Usually, so with Hadrin, you would light only one candle.
Every day, one candle.
Every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the least you can
So I'm
do.
pretty sure the Mahadran is lighting that, and then there's another one.
So the Mahadrin is one person lights one on day 5. A Mahadrin lights one person, one candle.
Yeah.
No. No. On the first position, one person lights one candle.
On day 5, let's say day 5.
On day 5, if there are 5 people in the family, each person will light one
That's
candle.
the Mahadrin.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so what's our lowest level?
One candle for a house.
So one person per house, regardless of what day.
Yeah.
So the mitzvah is one candle. Basically, like one Mahadran is
what we do today.
Yeah.
And
then there's a Mahadran. I'm pretty sure.
16 candles.
Right?
There is
the whole living room.
there is actually a machloket. The machlok between the Ashkenazim and Sfaradim. Only Sfaradim. So in a Sephardi home, there's only one Chanukiah, nachon? So there's a machloket. It's a very interesting machloket that comes down to the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. And the question is it 1, 2, 3? Meaning the lowest level is one person, one candle. So there'll be one candle per night per home. Mahadrin is 5 people, 5 candles per home per night. And then Mahadrin Mina Mahadrin. Is Mahadrin Mina Mahadrin built off Mahadrin or built off the regular one? Meaning you've got one person lighting for the home, the regular. Is it the regular, which is one person lighting? Mahadrin is everybody lighting. And then Mahadrin Min Mahadrin is the one person lighting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is how the Shulchan Aruch paskins. Or is it a progression? So you have one person lighting. Then you have everybody lighting. Then you have everybody lighting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So in a Sephardi home, one person lights and they light for everybody because they see there's the din, and then there's either Mahadrin or Mahadrin min Mahadrin. But the Ashkenazim see it as the din, Mahadrin, and then Mahadrin min Mahadrin. You follow? Okay. That was as an aside. But I want to try to understand. It's such an unusual way to have an argument, but it's so tempting to try to understand what this machloket is.
Someone's allowed to light one candle per night, even nowadays, or no?
No.
In special circumstances, if you don't have the means for 8 candles.
Shushan is good. Even though he's a Purim Jew, he's quite correct about Hanukkah.
Purim and Chanukah related.
Yes, absolutely.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
Arguable.
That was excellent.
No,
Yes.
they're very related. They're both.
They're alright, and they both have.
To Rabbanan.
The Rabbanan, man.
Cannot
Both the
top
Rabbanan, they both have mitzvahs.
Yeshiva jokes,
right?
the pinnacle.
Yeah, and
think of it. Don't expect me that.
Okay.
So if someone doesn't have a lot of money, candles per night.
Generally, the Balabait lights.
Right.
There's a debate about whether women light. In general, if a woman wants to light, she should light. But if a woman, it's a custom not to light, she doesn't light.
The wife doesn't light because she is because she is
Right.
like connected with.
But
her
if she,
husband,
yeah.
And that's why the wife can't. That's why the wife couldn't light for the husband if he can't make it back home.
No, she can light on his
Yeah,
behalf.
that's what I said.
She does.
She can light on his behalf.
Correct.
But I heard that the daughter should also light by themselves if possible.
Yeah.
They don't need to. Even though people are like so far away from where they were and everything all, might be a different day for them too. All this from didn't need to light because their father did it for them, even though they were bar mitzvah.
Nachon. Okay, I want to share with you 2 more machlokot. Maybe we'll splash out for you. Maybe we'll do 3 machlokot for you. And then after we've done these 3 machlokot, we're going to see if we can find a machane meshutaf, the meta machloket. Okay, so here's a few. The Gemara tells us like this. There's a machloket. There's a machloket. Oh, shalom aleichem. How are you doing? A beautiful machloket between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai about what bracha do we make on Motzei Shabbat on the candle? According to Beit Shammai, the bracha that you make on Motzei Shabbat is bara. Yeah, one. We're commemorating the fact that on the first day of creation, Vayhi Or, God. That's why we all light it. But when I look at the light on a Motzei Shabbat, I'm commemorating that light God created on the first day of creation. God created light. Bara Ma'ora Esh. However, Beit Hillel says, no, I'm making a bracha on the light that's here right now, and I don't say bara, I say borei ma'orei ha'esh, the lights. You follow? That's a machloket number 1. I'm just throwing machlokot to you, just for you to think about. Another machloket. There's a machloket between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai about starting an activity on Erev Shabbat and it continuing into Shabbat. So if I say you're not allowed to dye clothing on Shabbat. But when you dye clothing, you don't just dip it in. You have to leave it to sink in this ink for, let's say, 12 hours, right? So let's say I dip something into the ink at midday on a Friday afternoon. Have I transgressed Shabbat or not? Beit Hillel say I haven't, because before Shabbat came in, I finished the malacha, and I'm not allowed to soak it. So according to I'll read you the Hebrew. According to Beit Shammai, Ein shorin dayo v'smanim v'semanin ela kadei she'ishuhu mib'od yom. You're only allowed to soak cloth material in dye as long as that cloth will be the dyeing process will be completed before Shabbat comes in. Or Beit Hillel matirin, but Beit Hillel say you are allowed to dip it on Erev Shabbat, on condition that you finish your part before Shabbat comes in. Is that clear?
Chulent is half and half. Kind of.
Ah,
or a little over half, but half and half.
Yeah, so sure. Oh my gosh, that's a very good one. Yeah, you're allowed to. That's getting into Hilchot Bishul on Shabbat, which is really quite the cooking on Shabbat, which is really.
Has to be more than chulent has to be more than 50%. Is that the?
No, well, no, you can know.
Comes in.
No, if you're a chulent that you're eating on Shabbos morning, doesn't need to be. You can put in a raw piece of meat before Shabbat. It doesn't need to be edible.
At the time of Shabbat, it does not have to be edible.
No, because it will cook on Shabbat. There is a concern about having how to put it on a hot. It's a bit complicated.
Right,
it depends how you set up the plate.
Chulent holds by Shammai because it's the same as the dye. We're holding the.
No, we hold up Beit Hillel. On Shabbat, if I set it up, the cooking for Shabbat morning can continue on Friday night, assuming it's a Shabbat morning dish. Does that make sense? Okay. These
for after Shabbat.
Correct. So we see, it turns out in many cases, Beit Shammai is more strict than Beit Hillel, but not because of a worldview. Let's say in our 1 to 8, 8 to 1. That's not an argument where one's strict or one's more lenient. So I'd like to think for a minute. I'd like to ask you to think for a minute about a Machane Meshutaf. Machane Meshutaf is the meta machloket. Any thoughts? No. In general, could you look at what worldview would make Hillel say 1 to 8, as long as you started it before Shabbat? Say Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. Like we'll say the die Baruch Hashem Yom Yom.
Huh? You're counting the numbers of days of Chanukah that you are at.
Right.
So therefore, you would go from 1 to 8 because you start from day 1 on Chanukah, and you end with day 8 on Chanukah.
Yes. Beit Hillel say, Marbi Makodesh. You understand? I'm always growing. I understand that. We certainly feel it on Chanukah. Chanukah's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It would be a bit depressing, I think, if it were to go down and down.
Did you say why Beit Shammai?
Yeah, Beit Shammai. Does anyone know Beit Shammai?
Beit Shammai says you go down is because whenever we count anything, we always go, how many days left? For instance, I'm pretty sure it's the carbon on Pesach. We bring 13 carbonot first day. Sukkot. 13 carbonot first day, last day 6. So we go up. The reason why is because there's 50 levels of holiness and 50 level steps, and at the end of first day of Pesach, when we left Egypt, we're basically trying to go up to Har Sinai, the holiest, to Shavuos, when supposedly, and they're not even sure which day it is, but the holiday Shavuos is when we got the Torah.
But why can't we then say I only have 1 left or I only have 10 left? Either way, we're ascending. We're just phrasing it differently.
Right.
No matter how we say how much is left in Hanukkah, it's still the same amount left. So too with Shavuot. If we say, okay, now I have 1 week left, whether I say I've gone X weeks or have X weeks, Y weeks left, it's just a matter of phrasing.
Right. So when you're ascending in one is Sirot Omer, you're ascending in holiness. You're ascending to the holiest of holiness. The 50th level of holiness is the most holiest place you can ever be, and nobody has ever gone there. And I'm pretty sure that the only person that ever gone there was Rabbi Akiva, and Moshe was 1 step down from it when he passed away. So I'm pretty sure Rabbi Akiva is the only one that ever gone there. And the reason why we count down.
I want Ezra.
Like getting farther away from being in the holiday or something and everything.
Ezra, thank you. You are always a source of enlightenment. Enlightenment. Thank you.
If you think about Ariel, if you think about it,
enlightenment, like we're sleeping.
8 days of Hanukkah, special days, 8 special days. more special than the day before Hanukkah and the day after Hanukkah.
But
and every single day when you go into Hanukkah,
you're going to see the day after Chanukah is the highest of the high. But we're going to come to that in a minute. Well, we're going to come to that. So according to Beit Hillel, the Gemara tells us Ma'alim Bakodesh. Beit Shammai, does anyone know? Ezra mentioned it a minute ago. Anyone know any examples in Halacha where we count down, other than for liftoff, where we count down in Halacha? Halachic counting down, that is, as opposed to Cape Canaveral counting down. So there is an example. There is the example that Ezra mentioned, and the Gemara tells us, Parei Hachag. You know that on Sukkot, we sacrifice 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 7.
7, 9, 9.
And if you add 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 7 plus 12, 13, sorry. It's 13. Mm-hmm. If you add them all down, you get to 70. 70 cows that were sacrificed over the Chag of Sukkot. And the Gemara tells us that the reason why Shammai Azaken says you go down is because Parei HaChag, to commemorate, Beit Shammai, the cows of Sukkot and the Chanukah lights. But I'm not going to talk about that. That's the Gemara there. What I do want to talk about is what's the meta, because I want to look at the meta machloket.
Maybe the Hillel means that we had the.
It's more miraculous each time.
Yeah.
You mean like the miracle for the first day, Mela? That's very, very good.
Hey, this is just outrageous.
Excellent. Very, very good. You're sort of like, the miracle is...
It's not that important.
Well, on the first day, looking back now, we realize it was able to light for 8 days.
Right.
And on the 7th day, it was able to light for 7 days. You mean like the oil, the miracle was 8 days long on the first day because it was going to last for 8 days. But the miracle was 7 days long and then 6 days long. That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
but I want to go.
It's a miracle.
Yeah.
Every day is a miracle.
Yeah. That could work only because the Gemara tells us a very, very unusual description of the celebration of Chanukah. So first of all, it's interesting in general, and I think we're going to talk a little bit more. It's a rabbinic festival. As you know, it's the first festival that has no book in Tanakh, because we have Megillat Esther for Purim, and Be'ezrat Hashem, next week, we're going to use that as an opportunity to talk bichlal about Rabbanan. You know, like halachot to Rabbanan, because the rabbis created a chag. That when we read Torah on Chag HaChanukah, we read about Chanukat HaMishkan in the temple, not the story, not this story. We don't read it, but I'm going to leave that as a teaser for next week. But I'm going to I just want to add one little point to Shushan, our Purim Jew, and tell us that the rabbi said on Chanukah, when they were establishing, they saw this miracle, that it lasted for 8 days, but they didn't establish, let's say, Motzei Chanukah. They didn't say, okay, guys, this is amazing. Next year, we're going to make this into a festival. Tidish Vordlach about lights, they realized that this is a special day of light. The following year they established it as a festival. It wasn't immediately after the miracle that it was a very exciting day. Then they went through the calendar, but when they printed the Jewish calendar for the following year, so that would fit in a little bit with what you were saying, Shushan, about like, when I look at it, when I celebrate it in retrospect. I'm not recording an event, but I'm recording how the following year we looked at the event. You follow what I'm saying?
I want to add to that it would also connect with Hillel's view on things, that every day is a miracle.
Oh, go on.
Yeah. So with every day, it's a miracle that it happened, that the light burned another day.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's a bigger miracle. Yeah, so the second day is a bigger miracle, and third day. Yum yum.
That is excellent, excellent, excellent. So yes, Shoshan, you're phenomenal. In fact, there's a lovely, lovely book that I highly recommend you all read. There's a very, very important rabbi who lived here in Jerusalem, and he passed away almost 50 years ago. His name was Rabbi Zevin. He wrote, I don't know if you've ever seen these yellow book, many volumes of a yellow book called Encyclopedia Talmudit, the Talmudic Encyclopedia. At the moment, it's still being. He started it. We passed away 50 years ago. Really, it's a project that's been going on for concept in the Talmud, and then writing an entry on one and creating this incredible encyclopedia. The first editor of the Encyclopedia Talmudit was Rabbi Zevin. In addition to this book, Encyclopedia Talmudit, he wrote lots of wonderful books. We might even have a book here called The Festivals in Halacha, Moadim B'Halacha, that was being translated into English. But he wrote a lovely, lovely book that I really encourage everyone to read one day, called La'or HaHalacha. In his book, La'or HaHalacha, he takes halachic topics and analyzes them, and he wrote a brilliant essay on our topic, Hillel and Shammai. And really much of what we've said, the examples we've looked at, are all taken from the article written in the book, La'or HaHalacha. And that really, it's a whole article, but I put 2 lines in the source. He writes over here, with Beit Hillel, exactly what Shushan said. He said, Beit Hillel mashkifim alav mibchinat yitziato lefoal. He said, Hillel is interested in the here and now. He's only interested in his relationship with halakha, or what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants him to do. He's interested in what's going on right here, right now. And therefore, if I have an opportunity to express gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu right here, right now, that's what I'm going to do. Baruch Hashem, Yom Yom. On the first day of Chanukah, the miracle lasted for 1 day. On the second day of Chanukah, the miracle lasted for 2 days. It's only on the 8th day of Chanukah that I could say the miracle lasted for 8 days. So my commemoration of the miracle follows the how the miracle unfolded. That the miracle became greater and greater as the holiday continued, because I'm in the here. Your Shabbat table, yes. Who cares if there's a pot upstairs that the cloth is soaking in a color? I'm not interested in what's sort of happening in a passive manner. I'm interested in what are you doing right now. Hillel was very much in the present. You follow? That's Hillel. Shammai.
And such a worldview, for example, with halacha, with the dye, is not an opinion that it's okay, but it's
Exactly. Every sheet, every ruling is part of his avodat Hashem. It's a meta. It's really it's a meta machloket about where am I in the world. Was much more look to the future. It wasn't about just this minute. It was about the repercussions of what's happening. You follow? Mabitim al hadavar kafi mashu adain bekoach. You might say that Beit Shammai was much more focused on the potential in a situation, not in what's happening, but what could happen. So when Hillel looks at a piece of meat, Hillel says, what an opportunity to make a bracha for HaKadosh Baruch Hu right here, right now. Baruch Hashem, Yom Yom. But Shammai would look at the piece of meat and say, when could I use this? Maybe I can use this at a Chvot Shabbat Kodesh. I'm going to save it and I'll use it on Shabbat. You follow? Likewise in the miracle, when Shammai looks at potential, really the greatest day of Chanukah is the first day of Chanukah. Why? Because when as we mentioned earlier, we're not commemorating the story as it transpired. We are We know the whole story and we're celebrating it in retrospect. The first day of Chanukah, when I look back, is the greatest day of Chanukah, because that day, the potential was there's 8 days worth of oil there. So I'm going to commemorate that with the 8. It's the most powerful day because that's the day with the greatest potential. I didn't know it at the time, but it was L'Shana Acheret. It was the following year that I was commemorating it. Shammai is more like wider vision, not just focused in right here, right now, but he's looking at things in a much wider frame. When a guy goes to Shammai and says, "Teach me the whole Torah," whilst I'm standing on one leg, so Shammai looks at this guy, looks at the whole of Torah, and that's just impossible. There's no, I mean, that like it's a non-start, like what you were saying. It's just I can't even talk. Says, can you teach me right here, right now? So yes, I'll teach you right here, right now. And then tomorrow we'll continue. He's much more. He's not focused on, he's not overwhelmed by. I don't know, sort of like. Do you have any idea what question you're asking? Because right here, right now, here's somebody who wants to learn Torah. Mitsuyan. We'll start. He's not as thrown as Shammai because he's much focused in what do I need to say to this guy right now, rather than what could ever happen out of this story. You follow?
A whole crash course in Torah Shoktav Baal Peh in one sentence.
Yeah. Exactly.
As opposed to Hillel, just like, okay, this is what this guy needs to hear right now in order for him to.
Yeah, exactly. Like what Havdalah. In Havdalah, Beit Shammai says, I commemorate, because I'm not in the here and now. I'm looking at the entirety of human history. Right here, right now, Borei Ma'orei Ha'esh, not Bara Ma'or Ha'esh. Ad Biat Goel. You hear that? So that's why it's not like you said so excellently, Ariel. It's not that one's Machmir and one's Mekel. It's just a way of looking at my place in this world. Do I just look, what's HaKadosh Baruch Hu want me to do right here, right now? Hillel HaZaken. And Shammai is looking much wider. Does that make sense to everybody? We know the Gemara tells us that but at the time of Moshiach we'll follow the opinion of Shammai, not because we can become more Machmir, but because we're going to see the world, like when Biat Goel, so I'll understand. Right now, I don't understand Biat Goel, I don't understand Yemot Mashiach, I don't understand Gan Eden, I just have to be right here, right now. But Shammai, Biat Goel, so then I'll understand things that I don't understand now. So then I'll see, so then I can look at the wide, sort of my vision becomes wider, then I can live a Shammai Jew.
They just had Beit Hillel's point of view.
So I imagine. So it's an art. It's a machloket, an ideological argument. The result is that often Beit Hillel was Mekel and Beit Shammai was Machmir. But I think that people followed. They just that worldview resonates. That's Rav Zevin.
I heard that the people, like Hillel and Shammai themselves, argued very little.
Yes, correct.
But the main arguments were just the schools.
Correct, but that fits in very nicely with what we're saying. It's not an argument. It's like a...
It's not right or wrong.
Yeah, exactly. It's also, like two people... in his yeshiva, Beit Hillel, the big donor comes in from America with $1 million. So right, that's it. Let's go on a week to Yule. But Beit Shammai say, let's invest this, let's decide, let's see what's going on. I'm joking. But it's like here and now, or supposed to. But I don't know if that's a correct application. Okay, that is Rav Zevin, and that is the halachic piece for today. I want to add one piece to the end of that before I share Mamash gold with you from the Shemesh Shmuel, who has a different interpretation of their machloket. But before we get to that, I just want to explain why I find this so interesting. There are certain rabbis that argue many, many times. Beit Hillel, Beit Shammai. Another example is Abaye and Rava, Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva. It's very, very exciting to try to find Nukudat HaMachloket in your learning. It just makes the learning experience so much more rewarding. The fact that the Gemara sort of points out a Machloket, it's only there because it's meaningful. Something trivial. It's not views. And one of the greatest joys in learning is to try to enter the worlds and then see how they clash. So this was a touch of that within Hillel and Shammai, using Chanukah as our springboard to talk about it. But I want to conclude, with your permission, with something absolutely unbelievable. Is absolutely brilliant. He talks about the argument between Hillel and Shammai. And I'm going to explain the Shemesh Shmuel by starting with the opinion of Shammai, and then we can go from Shammai to you ever put on tefillin. Does anyone here remember the first day they put on tefillin? Mm-hmm. So I remember the first day. And it's just like the smell and the sound. You just like so excited. I mean, just so full of love for this mitzvah. I'm embarrassed to say I've been putting on tefillin for many years since then, and I can remember that 2 months after that day was such a day full of excitement. I'm not sure I'm back to that day. I don't get excited by the smell of my tefillin today. I rush up, I put them on, I put on my tefillin, sort of in the morning, check the time, what time is the bus, what time do I need to do this or that. Stuff that first day I put on my tefillin. And what Beit Shammai says is that when we do a mitzvah, I know it sounds like a terrible thing to say, but the greatest excitement in doing a mitzvah is always when you do it for the first time. The first day you do something is always very special. And I hate to say terrible things, but on Chanukah, the first night of Chanukah, the smell of donuts is gorgeous. Can't wait to have some levivot. Where's Mao Sur? I'm singing every word, and everyone's enjoying the whole thing.
Do you have to sing Mao Sur? No,
but we sing more. So I mean, it's pretty quite universal custom. And then are we only on the fourth verse? We haven't even finished it yet. Now that excitement, that living sort of joy. I wouldn't say it. I understand what I mean to say.
Like that one last candle, it's like we're treasuring it. It's almost like if you can't study Torah for 8 hours, then let's say you can only study Torah for 3 hours, right? So maybe you should have a job, so that way those 3 hours can be just like really special.
He's not. I mean, he's just reflecting the reality.
Yeah.
And the reality is that we start with the sea of height of excitement, and unfortunately, well,
if you only have donuts on Chanukah, can you make a shechianu on the donut?
I think we should definitely make shechianu. There are some people that have a minhag on the first night of Chanukah to have one donut, second night. Anyway, I offer that challenge to all. I offer you all that challenge.
You can buy a new fruit and then say shechianu on it, and then.
Oh, excellent!
But you don't eat fruit on Hanukkah. Like that's not.
I think you are. I hate to say terrible things, but it mamash makes sense. So I want to understand what's shitat Beit Hillel. So what's Beit Hillel saying when he says we go in the other direction from 1 to 8? So he says something. I'll tell you another story. I want to go back to the tefillin. Beseder? So I have to say, as I mentioned, very exciting. But then, so when we first moved into Katamon, there was an amazing guy that used to daven in the shul at which I davened. His name is David Shemesh, Zecher Livracha. He was an old man. I remember in the middle of the snow, he would nothing would stop him from going to shul in the morning. And I used to watch him, close to 90 years old, maybe even over 90, and he'd watch him pulling it up, it was dark, like this time of year, it's dark when you go to shul, freezing cold, taking off the layers, and his love for this mitzvah. He'd been wearing his tefillin, if he's 90, he'd been wearing his tefillin for 70 something years, right? 77 years. Imagine doing a mitzvah every day for 77 years. How connected could you possibly be to that mitzvah?
You've been doing yours probably now about at least 30 to 40 years.
Yes, that is true.
Because that's been how long ago?
You're such a gift to the Jewish people, Ezra. So then I want to. It's in source number 5. Because of time, I'm not going to read it, but you can read it to yourselves. I underline dafka those 3 words, that the excitement at the beginning is a matana min hashamayim. I'm not excited, and understand this. It's a horrible thing to say, but it's true. I'm not excited about Chanukah on the first night of Chanukah. I'm excited because it's a break from routine, because we haven't done it for a while, because I haven't used my Chanukah, because 1,000 different... The 13-year-old who puts on his tefillin for the first time to have a bad first piano lesson. So you're just press the keys. It's not exciting because I'm going to be Tchaikovsky or Rachmaninoff. It's exciting because I've never done it before. Anything we do for the first time is exciting because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a gift. It is a matana min hashamayim. The first time I daven, the first few weeks in yeshiva, all of the first. So then the matana min hashamayim starts to go down. And the chap is to make the real love come up as that's going down. You follow? Matana min hashamayim is going up, but I'm investing. I care so much in it. So then you follow until the grass cross. Exactly, that is exactly. And then I reach higher than I was with the matana min hashamayim through my own investment. This guy, David Shemesh. So no bar mitzvah boy will ever put on his tefillin with the love that he, after 77 years, the love he spent. There was not a day in 77 years, rain, snow, boiling sun, every single day he would get up, often in the winter, when it was dark, into over 90 years old. The love that he invested in that mitzvah means the matana min hashamayim is gone long ago. It's a love that's a real deep love for the mitzvah. I just want to finish. So it explains, Beit Hillel's svara is that on the first day, if you strap away the matana min hashamayim, how can I be excited? I'm doing it for the very first time. I haven't even touched a Chanukah for a year. It can't be in my kishkas yet. You have to get back into shape. And so the first night, efforts to get the same connection with Chanukah as I had as a matana min hashamayim from Beit Shammai at the beginning. You follow? Isn't that brilliant? So and those who are married here can confirm it's true of marriage. The excitement at the beginning is a matana min hashamayim, but year after year, making the same cup of tea again and again, or whatever it is, that investment in your soulmate just brings you closer and closer and closer to that person. That love that was a matana min hashamayim at the beginning becomes way more than the matana min hashamayim afterwards. So I want to bless us all. Chanukah, Torah, Tefillah, tefillin, all the important things that we're involved in our lives. Understand that the excitement is a matana min hashamayim. Don't be scared when the matana min hashamayim starts to fade, and understand now it's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, now it's your time to up your game and to invest and to make your connection real rather than just a matana min hashamayim. That's it. Yishar koach. Yes. Yeah.